Welcome back, everybody. How's it going, Ricky?
Pretty good, man. Nice win. A little stressful, but got through it.
Yeah, They, I mean, Rogers and Doval. They made it about as interesting as they possibly could. Um, you know what, Walker, great job. I'm gonna give him lots of props. Walker looked
Oh yeah.
awesome. But yeah, Rogers and Doval, man, they it seems like every time they go out there, and you know what, they do a good job. They overall in the season, they've both had pretty solid years. I know Doval's ERA is kind of up there right now, but I mean, it's been mainly two or three just blow ups that have kind of killed him, especially in games where they, weren't save situations and things like that. But God, they make it just so stressful every time.
Yeah, like I said, I mean the biggest thing with Doval is just honestly the little details in his game, holding runners on, you know, it last year was the pitch clock that kind of threw him off a little bit. It's all the little things other than pitching and fielding his position, just kind of knowing what the situation is in the game. Like right there in the ninth inning was a perfect example. Just lack of urgency getting over to first, and luckily there was a 2-run lead. But man, the harder their order coming up, you'd hate to see that cost you a game.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bold strategy going not covering first and then walking the tying run up, or walking the tying run on, and then having to go face Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor back to back. I mean, it's not how you draw it up, but hey, you know what? The win's a win. They're 3-1 on the road trip. They've got two guys with 5 ERAs coming up in the next 2 days. With I know Carrasco's the second day. Who's the other guy? It's Logan Allen.
Logan Allen, yeah.
Tomorrow, who is a lefty, so they'll probably score 1 run. And unfortunately, they just have not hit lefties this season. Hopefully, they change that tomorrow. I'd love to see them get a couple of these guys in the lineup that, guys like Conforto and Wisely, who on the season have hit lefties decent in their limited opportunities. I mean, even Wade has hit lefties pretty decent this season. But hey, hey, they're gonna keep trotting Slater out there and Ahmed and call it good. But
In the one or
overall,
two hole.
Yeah, God. I mean, you know what? I'm at the point of like, if they're gonna play him, they're gonna play him. But can we at least kick him down to like 8? Like, just hit him 8 and 9th, get him out, and then move on, because this having them up in the middle of good hitters is killing him right now against lefties. So it is what it is. But again, good win today. Conforto, a couple big hits from him, 2 doubles. Ramos had a pair of hits. Chapman had a really good walk, I know, in the first. I'm trying to think of who else I'm missing here. I know Conforto kind of did the big damage, though.
Yeah.
Oh, Bailey had a sac fly in the first. That's right. Yeah.
Ahmed had a nicely timed little bunt single. Honestly, at the bottom of the lineup, you'll take it. Yeah.
That's like I messaged in the chat earlier. I was like, Ahmed's job now needs to just be C5 pitches out of the pitcher. And if he does that, then I'm like, whatever. He's just flailing up there.
Honestly, and that's something they've done a pretty good job of for the most part on this road trip, is just getting, pitches out of these other team starters. They did in Atlanta, and then again tonight against the best starting pitcher they're going to face all series. So that was huge, starting the game off like that. And, it was really good that they did that, because it seemed like all the pitchers tonight had a little bit of trouble getting their footing on that mound for whatever reason. And, we saw it over and over and over again with every Giants pitcher that came in. It seemed like it took at least 2-3 batters for them to really start to get a little bit comfortable on that mound. So that was a huge win. Clinched a 500 road trip at best. They could go a few games above 500 on this trip. And again, against another really good team, a playoff team, third best record in the AL, I believe, or in the MLB. Now they won 8 out of their last 11. So that's huge, especially with that last little slump they had going in against the Cardinals. starting to finally creep their way back up to 500 is huge.
Hey, small balls, there's still a place for it, in Major League Baseball. I don't like that they weren't doing everything they could earlier in the season to try and manufacture runs. They weren't bunting guys over. They weren't stealing bags. They weren't really doing anything. And the offense was just in a funk, and they weren't putting hit and runs on. They weren't doing anything to try and get out of it. It was like they were just trying to walk and swing for the fences their way out. And it didn't work. Now you're seeing, Cat's going to join us today. Now you're seeing a lot more of the little things that they're doing, and they're doing a good job of it. So, I'm enjoying seeing those things and enjoying seeing them play, the game that I grew up watching of baseball. So,
Yeah, and honestly, biggest thing is just capitalizing with bases loaded and not getting just the one run and really blowing it open there a little bit right off, the bat in the first inning. Because, I mean, as we saw, their offense slowed down big time late in the game. A couple base running mistakes and not really getting much going at all once we got into their pen. So and they do have a very good bullpen. So
yeah.
it's going to be tough the next couple of games as well. So
Yeah, I mean, it puts some pressure on the Giants because, I mean, their MO all season's been, get pitchers out of the game, and then, they might only score a run or get shut out by a starter, but they'll get them out in the fifth inning or something, or the sixth, they'll get them out after five. And then they've been coming back on a lot of teams on their bullpens, which, I mean, frankly, is an unsustainable way to win all season. Like, at some point, you got to start just jumping on teams and like having wins like today where you got up four runs and then just won. They did make it interesting. I would have loved to have seen them tack another run on or two in the later innings, but it's going to put pressure on their offense the next couple days to do something early because, I mean, that Cleveland bullpen is nasty. I mean, did every guy that came out of their pen throw 98? Like,
that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like for sure. So kind of hoping at this point we can try to get in their pen early again tomorrow, and then hopefully, at least game 3 of this series with Birdsong up, if he struggles a little bit, hopefully we can get into a more tired pen, and hopefully that way at least make sure we get a series win out in Cleveland. Yeah, honestly, this one was huge. Like I said, going in, just honestly win 1 out of 3 in this series, and I'll be totally happy. Get back at home and get some easier opponents coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, coming in, we talked about it yesterday, but it was just don't get swept. And now that you win game 1, it's like, all right, get greedy. Let's at least take. let's try and, especially with who they have pitching. To me, it's like, go win one of those games, and let's actually come home with a really good road trip. You can come back a game under 500, and then you have an opportunity going into the All-Star break. I mean, I was sitting there before yesterday's game, and the Giants were sitting at 3 games under 500, and my feelings were, okay, you got to win at least 6 of the last 10. Like, you got to find a way. That way you can get into the All-Star break, even though they'd be a game under 500 still. My thoughts were, get into the All-Star break. You're right at almost 500, and then we talked yesterday a bit about how they have a relatively soft schedule coming out. Like, it's like the first 32 games they get to play 7 against Colorado, 4 against Oakland, and they get Chicago White Sox and Detroit in there, and then teams like the Nationals and Reds, who, I mean, it's going to be tough on the road, and then there's the Dodgers and Braves mixed in there too, but at least the Braves series will be at home, and they just showed they can hang with them in Atlanta. So my feelings were, get into the All-Star break, go 6-4 in the last 10. And well, they just took the first 2. So now it's like, okay, let's get a little greedy. Let's try and, win one of these against Cleveland and see if we can find a way to have a 4-2 homestand. They do that, they're going to go into the All-Star break a game over 500, which, I'm not trying to sit here and celebrate being 1 game over 500, but, given where they were 6 games under as recent as 11 games ago, 10 games ago, something like that. And yeah, it's just, that is a big turnaround, and then they get to the soft spot of their schedule. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of see.
Yeah, and I mean, not looking too far ahead, but going home after this series, you've got Toronto, and they have both one of the worst pitching staffs in the league, pretty close numbers wise to the Giants team ERA, and then they also have one of the worst hitting teams as well statistically. So that's definitely a series you want to try to gain a little momentum going into the All-Star break as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
huge series here before the break for sure, and get that pitching back and see where we're at. And that's another reason why I feel like tonight's game was so important. Was Harrison's going tomorrow. We don't really know what to expect with him.
For those of you that are noticing, we did say we were going to have Dan here with us. Caveman living up to his name over there. His power went out, so he said his it's scheduled to come back at 8:15. That's part of why we pushed it back 30 minutes. And with the late start on the game got coming, got going a little late because of the rain and everything. So we decided to just kind of push it a little bit. But Dan will be joining us here a little later. Hopefully his power's on and he'll be able to hop in with us.
Yeah, it
We
should
gonna
be
face
fun.
Gossman against Toronto. Do you know?
Ooh, I have not looked at the pitching matchups yet. He's not been quite as great this year as he's been since he joined Toronto, but I still don't like how they match up against him. They always struggle against Gosman.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking to face him. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I mean it would be fun back in SF this time.
Yeah. It's like
It's
Hendricks,
like,
man. Like we could be, Hendricks. He had an 8 ERA in Chicago and we went to face him. And I'm like, I don't care what his ERA is, and I don't care if this game's being played on the moon. We ain't hitting him. Like that guy just owns him. And Gossman maybe not to that extent, but Gosman is he's a tough guy to face. And anytime you face a former team, they always have that like little extra chip. I mean, he basically got he wanted to come back to San Francisco, and the Giants just basically told him like, yeah, we're not giving you a long-term deal before he walked. So it's you face those guys at your own risk. It doesn't really matter what they're doing. They're gonna give you their best shot on any given day.
so I did just get an answer, and he will be pitching the last game of that series, so that'll be really fun. Could decide that series. He does have a 4.75 ERA though, so like I said, he is starting to show that decline a little bit, which I think a lot of us were worried when the Giants were deciding on whether or not to bring him back. I think that was something we're a little bit concerned about, just because he's a little bit up there in age for a free agent. So we may be starting to see the beginning of the end with him.
Yeah.
And then going back to Frederick's comment, actually, we are facing Kikuchi as well. First game of the series for him.
I'm out. They're gonna release the lineup. You're gonna see Slater hitting second. It's just gonna be like, okay, well.
Here we go again.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not trying to bag on the team right now. They've won 8 of 11. They were 6 games under 500, starting the homestand against Chicago and the LA. Their season, when they were 6 games under, and they're staring at Chicago, LA, Atlanta, Cleveland, and then even though Toronto's not great, Toronto and Minnesota, who Minnesota looks like they're going to be, they might be a wild card team from last. I need to double check the standings, but I think they're like right there. If they're either in one of the last spots or close, but you're staring that down the barrel, and it's like they could have easily their whole season could have just ended in this stretch. I mean, they very easily could have found themselves 10 plus games under 500, especially when they had to play the Dodgers easily. At any point they've shown they can just get swept by LA, like as much as it pains me to say that. And Atlanta has never a tough place to play, and Cleveland is one of the best teams in the AL. So like massive amounts to credit to the team, to Melvin, to all the guys that have gotten going, all the vets that we've been super hard on this season, And guys like Soler has been playing well, Conforto's playing well, Chapman's playing well. Some of the pitching has stepped up. Logan Webb has been super consistent. Sounds like they might get him 2 more times before the All-Star break. They're riding him into the ground, it feels like, but they need it, and hopefully they get a couple starters back after the break that can kind of take the load off some of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. Getting Webb in there twice before the break is going to be huge because, like I said, man, if you can go 2 out of 3 in Cleveland, get greedy, and then just win those last 2 series against 2 teams that really aren't anything too special. Twins are going to be a little bit tougher test than Toronto, but if you can get greedy and win, these next 3 series are going to be in really good shape going in the break, like we mentioned before, with that upcoming schedule in both end of July and for most of August, honestly, a lot of non-playoff teams. So it's really on them to, not play down to the competition like they have in the past. Because, like you're saying, they could have definitely let their season fall apart on 2 different occasions. I look back at that Dodger series at home when they blew up on Keaton Wynn and Shohei at that freaking tank out into Triples Alley. And then again in the Cardinals series after the Rickwood game and Willie Mays passing. Those 2 points were probably the lowest of the season where you're like, all right, back's up against the wall. What are you going to do? It's either you're going to go in the tank right now or you're going to turn your season around. And they've answered the bell both times now. So,
yeah, I agree. I'm adding in a few of the questions from the chat from earlier. So, we had a bunch of people send in some chats or some questions to us. We're gonna try and get to all of them. We're gonna try and answer all of those. I'm gonna see if we can just kind of I'm gonna pull the first one because we've kind of touched this a little bit, or touched on this a little bit. I'm gonna get rid of the ticker. We'll just put it on the screen. The first one we had gotten was, are the bullpen games hurting the Giants? And in the short term, I don't think they've really been hurting them in the immediate. It does kind of limit their flexibility. Guys don't have known roles. Guys, we talked about it a little bit yesterday on how it puts them in a tricky spot where they can't just constantly go yank a guy early because their bullpen's super spent, and you end up in situations where guys like Luke Jackson has to pitch a 10th inning and they end up losing the game because they just don't have the available arms. So it does to an extent in the short term. Where it's really going to hurt them is going to be in the long term. And this is why they really need guys getting healthy, because we saw last season when they were just running bullpen games day after day after day, it was, August, the whole staff just imploded. I mean, other than Webb was like the one constant that whole time. And then the whole staff the whole rotate or bullpen just imploded in August and September. So, we'll see. I don't think it's necessarily hurting them today, but damn, they better get healthy.
Yeah, and honestly, that's been my biggest gripe of them because, you go and listen to Farhan on, KMBR, and he kind of does his little chuckle and he defends them and says, oh, well, look at our record in the past. And it's like, it's not so much about the record in those games. There's been mixed results for sure. I know this year when we do start Eric Miller in the opener role and then come in with Jelly, Bivens, Howard, whoever it may be, they're actually just a little bit above 500, I believe, in those games that Miller started. But that really hasn't been the issue. Like you're saying, it's putting in these guys that are worn down late in tight games where they can't finish games off. That's where it hurts them. And then, like you said, they get a little bit of a time to freshen up in the pen during the All-Star break, and then they come back. And we've seen in several years in a row now, come late July, early August, you start seeing that fatigue set in big time with the pen. And then, we've already got all these question marks with what's Hicks' role going to be going forward? Is he going to go into the pen? Are we going to lose another starter? Are we going to get anything out of Cobb, Ray, or Snell? These are things that they have to consider. So you got to be really careful with these bullpen games, especially when, while Harrison's been out, we're running him, 2 and sometimes 3 times a week. It's definitely a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm going to kind of combine a couple of these questions before I get to the next one. We did have, I just want to say thanks. Appreciate it, D-Shot. You the man. Appreciate it. I know I see you on here quite a bit, so thanks for the support, man. Thanks for hopping in here. Jumping over to Aaron. When do we start to, air quotes, worry again about Matos? Is he a few overs from the yo-yo treatment? I mean, probably, unfortunately. I personally am not worried about Matos in the sense that, like, I'm not going to panic over a couple of overs. Like, he could have a couple hundred at bats and be kind of struggling a little bit, and I wouldn't really be panicking. These guys they need development. Like, they need time. They need patience. They need to just be able to go up there, play every day. And I mean, we kind of talked about their records in games that he started, and I'm not going to sit here and try and pretend like, oh, it's because of Matos that they were above 500 in his starts, and it's because of Yaz and Slater that they're below 500 or at 500 in their starts or anything like that. Like, it's a team sport. I mean, there's 9 guys out there at the end of the day, 10 if you're going to count the pitchers since there's a DH now. But there's 10 guys playing, they're starting the games, and then there's, the pen and all that. So a bunch of guys play. Like, I'm not trying to say it's one guy, but my thing with Matos was it kind of proves that they can afford to just let him go through his development phases and let him go through his struggles, and they can still be competitive. And he does a lot of little things that help the club, whether it's, situational hitting. He has a good approach with people, runners in scoring position, or a runner on third and less than 2 outs, because he's got really good contact skills and he'll put the ball in play. And it balances the lineup. It makes him deeper. And his defense, is it great? No, but he's flashed a lot of good plays, and he's made some mistakes. I mean, he's young. It is what it is. He's 22 years old at the end of the day. So I don't necessarily know if he's the best player on, as far as for starting. Like, I don't know if he necessarily gives them the best chance to win today over Yaz or Slater or any of those guys, but I feel confident that in 2 months we would feel like he gives them the best chance to win at that point if he just got the consistent time.
Yeah, I think me and Cody are both on the same page with this one. I think we both feel he'd be perfect to just leave down in the 8 or 9 hole at the bottom of the lineup at his speed. I don't really think there's a drop off between him and Yaz defensively, because you see when Matos is in the corners, ever since they moved Ramos over to center, honestly, he's been totally fine there. I think it's more in center field where we have issues with his routes and his first step on balls, especially when you see a guy like Lee who has, an elite first step, and then you have Matos come and replace him. It's very noticeable. But I think out in the corners, it's totally fine. But ultimately, the way Farhan runs things is, he sees a guy like Yaz. He knows what to expect with him. He knows that there's going to be a little bit of power there. He knows he can trust his glove. And ultimately, when he gets in slumps, he knows he'll eventually turn it back around. So I think that's just kind of where we're at, unfortunately, given the status of the team being kind of in the hunt for a wild card spot. He kind of sees it as there's no real reason to get rid of an average MLB player.
Yeah, it's and that's really what it is. It's just they're dependable. You know what they are. They're a low ceiling, high floor player. Although it's kind of hard to say high floor with Slater with the season he's had, but you know what I mean. It's like even Slater, like, he has like a 360 on base right now or 350 on base, so he's still getting on. He plays solid defense. He's just not swinging the bat great as a whole on the season. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to actually address this. They have a 119 WRC plus against lefties this season. What do you mean they can't hit him? Roman, look at who they start. This is the problem. It's not that they don't have players that can hit lefties. It's that when they play against lefties, you put Slater, Flores, and who's hurt right now, but they've been putting Slater in the lead. They had been putting Slater leadoff, Flores third, and throwing Ahmed out there. You cannot punt 3 outs, a third of your at bats against lefties, and not be able to string hits together because the top of your order is hamstrung by Slater and Flores, who have been borderline unplayable, and then Ahmed, who even at his best is kind of a punch and Judy hitter that might do something for you. So it's not that they don't have guys that can hit them. It's that the lineup construction is just terrible against lefties, and they're giving away too many outs. That's the issue. And they have guys that are left-handed that they just refuse to play because they don't like the left-on-left matchups. But then you look at the numbers, Wade, Wisely, even Bailey against lefties, who gets sat a lot against them, has like a 700 plus OPS and a 290 average. Conforto, all these guys that are lefties that get sat against them actually are hitting lefties pretty well in their small sample sizes this season. So I'm just not a fan of the way they go about facing lefties. I'm not saying they can't hit lefties.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you look at when Matos is in there against lefties, and then, someone like VR, Ramos, that's what makes a difference. But early in the season, like Cody is saying, we're rolling out those 3 in Flores, Ahmed, and Slater. Those, I believe all 3 of those guys are right around a 600 OPS on the season or right below it, with a combined 5 homers and almost no extra base hits. It's just a super low ceiling, when you have those 3 in the lineup. And I know we like to go off of years past in those splits, but those 3 just have not been that reliable, especially Slater and Wilmer. Like, Wilmer's came out of the gate slow in years past, but this year it's just has not turned around. And there's a lot of people that say he's not getting consistent enough at bats. And honestly, I beg to differ. He's had plenty of consistency with playing time. I mean, Wade was out forever, and he had tons of run to go and play every single day. Just hasn't produced. I mean, honestly, there's years past with Kapler where Flores was playing way less consistently because they had more depth around the infield. So they have made some tweaks. I mean, with Ramos playing every day, that makes a big difference against lefties, but that number's definitely improved since we've seen some of these guys play less and less. And honestly, I'd like to see VR get a couple more opportunities. He really only had the one bad game since he came back up from sack.
Yeah. I mean, he's hit a lot of balls hard. And
yeah,
I mean, unfortunately, if he doesn't if he takes a couple offers and he doesn't have the results to show, they're just going to find a reason to move him. That's just, it's the Giants MO. I'm not trying to like bag on Farhan here. It's just, that's what he does. It's the reality. So, I mean, we'll kind of see there. And this is strictly, I'm not saying anybody in the chat right now is saying this because obviously I haven't seen anybody say it, but it is something I have heard. There's this narrative around Flores, like he mentioned, that he's not getting his consistent at bats. And I'm just going to go back all the way from 2016 to this season. And actually, I'll go 2016 to 2023 without counting 2020 because I don't really care about that shortened season. He got 335 plate appearances, 362, 429, 285, 436, a random 602 in 2022. That's how bad the Giants offense was. And then 454 last season. He had 227 at about the midway point before getting put on the 10-day IL. So he was on pace for another 454 essentially on this season. He's getting his normal at bats. He just stinks. Like, that's what it is. Like, it's not that he's not getting the playing time. He's playing exactly as much as he normally does and more than he did in a lot of those seasons. So I can't give him that excuse.
Yeah, and by any chance, do you have his numbers with runners in scoring position last year? Because everybody likes to bring up the 23 home runs that he had last year, but I believe he had a sub 200 batting average with runners in scoring position last year.
I'm pretty sure it was like 168 or something like that. I'll get it. Might take a minute, but I'll get it for you here in a second. But yeah, and Frederick, they are platoon splits are notoriously high variance. You never know with those.
I found it. It was a 178 average with a 538 OPS last year. So
yeah,
that's kind of
and I dug in a little bit because I
with.
thought it might have been like a historical issue, and I dug in and saw a bunch of he has been solid throughout his career with runners in scoring position. Now this season he's just been bad in every situation, essentially. I mean, it sucks. Like I'm not like trying to hate on any player in particular, but like I'm just calling it how it is. And he's been one of the worst players in baseball. Like it's just that's what it is this season. So we'll kind of bounce through. I believe Harrison is supposed to be back. Like I don't know if he's pitching this weekend or tomorrow. Is he starting tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Harrison.
So he will be
and
back
then
tomorrow.
Snell would be probably my next guess on the next return. And then I don't know between Cobb and Ray. Ray threw 58 pitches. He got touched up a little bit in his start yesterday, but I don't care as much about the results. Somebody was in on Twitter talking about his fastball didn't look good yesterday, and I'm like, dude, I just want to see the guy build up on pitches. I'll worry about the stuff itself because 2 starts ago he was throwing 95 and his fastball looked normal. So, we'll see where he's at. He's gonna go through his spring training essentially, and I'm talking about Robbie Ray here, by the way, not Kyle. But he'll probably be the third if I had to guess. Unless Cobb is closer than we think, but he just finally, I think, is starting to make a rehab start.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, going back to Ray, I'd be far more concerned with, walk totals than I would with four-seam fastball spin rate. That's what I saw the complaint was, and I'm like, I don't think guys realize what it's like coming back from TJ and trying to get your command back and your mechanics down. That's a way bigger issue for a lot of guys that come back. So to me, I mean, I think mostly everything's encouraging. I'm not going to stress too much over numbers in the PCL. So, but I've honestly been surprised because I kind of went into the season not expecting a single thing from Robbie Ray. We were expecting more from Cobb, and now I'm kind of at the point where anything you get from Cobb at this point is a bonus. So, hopefully he can come back at some point, and that would be a huge boost if he looks anything like himself last year.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Cobb's a guy that he can be pretty sneaky efficient. So even if his pitch counts aren't, super high, I mean, he's a guy that might be able to get you 6 innings and throw 80 pitches like on occasion. So, and he really, he really helped them hold it together last season. I mean, he practically gave up his health to try and drag them to the playoffs. And then before everything just fell off the rails. But yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see what it is. I didn't have many expectations for Ray this season. I still don't. If he can just give him a couple, some starts and get around 5 innings, great. I mean, I think you're really building up for 2025 when you look at Robbie Ray. That's when we're hoping that he's really going to be a productive player again. And I don't really care about his performance right now in Sacramento. It's essentially his spring training right now. And we all saw how some of the Giants performed in spring training this year. When you see guys like Logan Webb having a 9+ ERA down there, it's like, the guy he's facing, yes, they're AAA hitters, but he's facing guys that have been playing for the last 3.5 months, and he's making like his 3rd start. So he's trying to find his stuff, like Ricky was saying there. I think we had a couple in here, a couple more. I'm going to squeak through. Oh, that's the one we already did. Is Luciano the most disappointing player in the Giants system this season? I mean, if Von Brown didn't exist, I'd probably say yes. if you're strictly going at the top of the system, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a rough one, and I'm by no means ready to give up on him. I am willing to move him, and I think he should be one of the top guys to trade. You look to trade, and it's not that I
Yeah.
don't believe in Luciano. It's just I don't want to move Eldridge. I mean, frankly, like that's they only have so many big trade chips, and if my options are trade Eldridge or trade Luciano, see ya, Marco.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy decision there. Um, yeah. I mean, given the expectations, I think, like we mentioned, I think last night, you're expecting a lot more power, plain and simple, and it just hasn't been there. And there hasn't really been those really massive hot streaks. There's one little mini hot streak that he got on before he got called up earlier this season, but other than that, that's really been about it. So at this point, it's like just hope this guy stays healthy and then get hot later in the season. But I wouldn't expect him, to be up much more this season unless we get another injury again. So
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, really, and people forget he did swing the bat really well in San Francisco. I mean, it was like a 10 game. That's what he got, was like 10 games. But I mean, he had like a
yeah,
triple. I mean, it was kind of a bloop triple in that one, but he had a triple. He had like 3 or 4 doubles. Um, he was working really good at bats. He wasn't chasing. He was swinging at pitches in the zone. He wasn't swinging and missing much. I mean, that's kind of what you want to see out of him. Like, he was just constantly producing quality at bats. So that was, um, that was good. You know what? Me too, Frederick. If Ramos's K percentage gets below 25, I mean, it was like 26.2 coming into today, and then he had 1 in 4 plate appearances, so it's probably still about 26.2.
hmm
That, I mean, I'm happy with that. Like Yaz and Slater, I don't know what they're at this season, but Yaz has been about 26%. It seems like most seasons he'll hover in that range. Slater was like 28 last year, and I trust me, if Ramos can get that down a little bit more, and just if he can hover around 25 with the natural power he has, I mean, if he can get it down around 25, then I feel really good about him as either a 3 or 4 hitter. I don't like 3
hmm
hitters that have 30+% strikeout rates. I'm not a fan of that. That's just my little more old school baseball in me. Even
yeah,
25 is a little high in some respects, but I can at least live with it if he's down there.
yeah. Before we get off of Ramos, real quick, I don't know if you saw the news, but with Tatis's injury, his chances for the All Star game just went up because obviously, as we know, Tatis is one of the NL starting outfielders, so that's big.
Yeah.
Gives Giants a lot better chance getting him and Webb both in. So
Yeah.
we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, they're going to announce the starters. For those of you that don't know, they're going to announce the starters not the starters, the reserves for the All-Star game and the pitchers for the All-Star game on
hmm
Sunday. I don't know what time. I just know Sunday. I think it's like 2 p.m. or something like that. I don't know. I might have just pulled a
Yeah,
random time. I'll get back to Eli's here in a second. Promote Damon Minor and fire Veely. That's the move that should be made. Hey, you know what? Damon Minor's out doing a hell of a job this season in AAA. I don't think he's getting enough credit. And, it's entirely possible they're making some changes with Luciano. I mean, you never know. Like, with a guy like him, they very well may be making some changes. And he's, struggling through them because, for any of you that have played golf, like I'm a big golfer, like, you make swing changes, like, it's ugly for a while. And that's hitting a ball that ain't moving. Now make swing changes in a sport where they're throwing all 90 plus with all sorts of different movements. Like, it doesn't always happen overnight. So I don't know with Luciano. I couldn't tell anybody here. I'm not in those meetings or in their practices or anything like that. I wish. I mean, it'd be cool, but yeah, Damon Minor's doing a hell of a job. He thinks super highly of Ramos. I heard him on like 95.7 The Game a couple weeks ago talking about Ramos and just how good of a kid he is. So it was fun listening to him talk. But yeah, he's doing a great job Wisely doing a good, a lot of guys that have been coming up and helping.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that the other day with you. Him and Wisely and Ramos both. I feel like you got to give him a ton of credit. I mean, like I said, we saw what Wisely was last year. He's trying to yank homers, and there's just no need for that. Now you're seeing him make more contact, and he's hitting a ton of line drives, and there's still some power there. You're not taking anything away from him, and now he's kind of a staple in the lineup at this point. I mean, he's been super consistent for the Giants, so it'll be interesting to see what else comes out of Sac. Maybe we see Hunter Bishop spend the whole year down there, and you might see a whole different Hunter Bishop next year. I mean, he's been solid for them so far, but you might see an improved player for sure. He's obviously been a disappointment thus far.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they wanted to get McRae up there earlier. Maybe they just felt get him out of the Eastern League, get him out of that environment, get him with Damon Minor. I think part of it has to do with the need to make a 40-man decision on him in the offseason. So it's like, okay, we got to see him at a higher level. But I think part of it's also just, maybe just get him where they have better coaches and a better environment, because as we've talked about, like, he's got so many tools and Bishop has so many tools that if you can hit on one of those guys, it's that those are difference makers. They have difference making potential. They're not just like, oh, it'll be a solid starter. Like, if they hit their potential, it's like they can be game wreckers with their speed and power combos and all those things that they have going for them. We're gonna back it up with Eli. We kind of touched on this a little bit. Optimism meter for the second half of the season. Feeling good after the road trip. If some of the streaky hitters get hot and the starting pitching gets healthy. What the streaky hitters, that's exactly the problem with the Giants this season, is when they're hot. And this is the first time we've really seen them get, Soler, Conforto, and Chapman all going at the same time. And Ramos is swinging the bat well. I mean, you have 4 guys that are swinging the bat really well. But as we've seen, they can all kind of go cold and quickly. And those are your big guys. So if they all go cold at the same time, all of a sudden you go in the opposite direction. So I think the pitching is the bigger thing there. They've got to find a way to get more consistency out of their starting pitching in particular. The bullpen has seemed to kind of right the ship after they had just a brutal month of April and really into May. Like, their pen was just super inconsistent, and it feels like they've been a lot better. I don't have the numbers in front of me to back myself up on this one, but just the eyeball test, the pen has seemed a lot better, at least recently.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest difference is there's a lot more established roles now. You see Taylor Rogers has kind of been demoted from the 7th and 8th innings for the most part. They're throwing him in a lot earlier in games when they do openers. Sometimes they're even having him go 2 innings. They're having him eat more innings. And then you've got guys like Randy Rodriguez who stepped up. He didn't come up until, I think mid-May, something like that. So he's been huge for the most part. He's had a couple rougher outings. Like today, he wasn't super sharp, but you got him. I mean, Jackson's really the only one that stands out that's been rough. But early on in the year, they were doing a little bit too much experimenting with guys like Jeffries and Tang and Roop in these long relief roles. And then sometimes they're even trying to throw these guys in the 7th inning, and they're just not that type of pitcher.
No. It's been the Tang kind of dragging it up a little bit. Jeffries killed them. Yeah, somebody mentioned Jeffries is still in the averages. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I will say this: I'm cautiously optimistic, especially if they can get out of this next stretch, as we talked about earlier. If they can get out of this next 8 games and they find a way to go into the All-Star break, either a game under or a game over 500, like, I'm going to feel pretty good going into it. But the Giants, you can't just start counting your chickens with them. I mean, it's just, that's unfortunately how they've been, where they'll go through a soft spot and struggle. So hopefully they're set up. I'll feel good and optimistic just knowing that they had played well against tough opponents and they get to the All-Star break and then and they're set up to go on a little bit of a run to position themselves for September. Because as Ricky brought up yesterday, they got what was it, 6 against San Diego and 6 against Arizona and 3 against St. Louis in September. So
yeah, 15 of 25.
It's a little bit of controlling their own destiny at that point. So you beat the teams that you're competing with, and you have a chance.
So. Yeah, and a lot of sub 500 teams between now and then as well. So a chance to build up a little bit of cushion, gain some ground, and then build up a little bit of cushion before playing those guys. But I mean, you look at a team like Arizona, and like I mentioned yesterday, they got one of the worst pitching stats in the league. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to compete with them.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but Luciano's stance is much different from last season more in his legs, lower hand position, slightly open. He changed mid-spring training right before he got red hot. I will say this. I never actually dug into his stance last season. It did look different to me, but I didn't look close. Like I never tried to take a side by side or anything to see. But yeah, I mean, that could be part of it. It's kind of like we were talking earlier. You make changes and sometimes it clicks for guys immediately. Sometimes it doesn't. And maybe this one will click eventually. Maybe it's one that he experiments with it for a while and then just trashes it. We'll see. Yeah, maybe in Toronto they're telling him to do something else in a couple weeks. I'm just kidding. But we'll see. Who someone put something in there about, I can't find it anymore. Shortstop. Yeah, I mean, shortstop's their biggest need. Or, I mean, Jazz, I'm waiting until Dan gets in here because we were going to talk a little bit about Jazz Chisholm and Bichette. I think all three of us kind of would prefer Bichette of the two. I do get some of the hype around Jazz. He's had a lot of injury issues. He certainly has potential. I just don't know if he's the best fit as far as positional need. But we'll jump back to him in a little bit. I did have one more question in here. It was kind of 2 questions, and then a bunch of people asked similar things in the chat. But one was, why don't they let Bivens start, and why do we keep giving Ahmed, Conforto, and Yaz starting time, especially if Yaz isn't 100% after taking the ball off his elbow? And then I had a few people in there saying, can Yaz and Slater do anything wrong in the eyes of Farhan and his minion Bomel? And how much longer do we have to endure noodle arm Nick? And too long is the answer to that part. But look at the name. Look at this.
Hey, man's here, fellas.
Yeah, we're gonna take the banner off just so everyone can see the.
Yeah, the cave's not too bad today. It's a little bit more light.
Yeah. No, you're good, man. I can actually see you.
I tried to angle all the lights in my house towards this, so I'm here. What's up? How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Good. How you doing, man?
I'm hot, dude. It was like 111 over here.
It was 88 today.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Your wife's out of town, so I can crash on the couch, right?
Yeah. Hey, you want to take the 2-hour flight? You're welcome to, man. I got a guest bed.
Oh, sweet. I'll be there.
Oh, man. All right. Well, this was the one that we popped up, and then we had a couple similar ones. I'll start with Bivens, and then we'll kind of make this a 2-parter. My opinion on Bivens, he's thrown the ball well. I like the movement. I like his pitch mix. You watch him pitch, and it's different than watching a guy like Howard, where, he makes some mistakes, but he's not like Howard was living middle with everything. And Bivens has good movement, both kind of, east and west, we'll call it, because he does have the sink. And he backdoored a couple people today, or front doored if it was a lefty. And then also throws the slider that, we saw him get Ohtani with like a week ago. He has a good solid slider. And but he's not built up to really be a starter. The reason he was able to get 5 against LA last week was just because he was just incredibly efficient with his pitch count. I think he only threw like 60 pitches, give or take a few. So I mean, I like him. He's filling in admirably in the opener role. I think he's going to be a good bulk guy to have when you do get these starters back. But I think that's kind of the reason why. Now, would I let him start as opposed to running just an opener and then putting him in after? Yeah, sure. I mean, I could probably say, I mean, why bother with the opener? But, that's what they like to do. It's just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, like they always say, is they don't want the other team to be able to set their lineup up against him. And then you also can bring him in the second inning and, Miller might have already gotten through, 1 through 4, and he's getting a little bit softer of a landing to start a game before, the top of their lineup can really figure out what Bivens is throwing, because these guys in the AL have never seen him before, obviously. So I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, only time will tell, though. Maybe later in the year he gets stretched out a little bit more, but I think, 60, 70 pitches is really the absolute most we're ever going to see him throw this year, at least.
Agreed.
Yep, cool. I didn't know if there was any more to that.
He nailed it, man.
Yeah. All right, and then why do we keep giving Ahmed Conforto Yaz starting time, especially if Yaz isn't 100%? They like the platoon. I will say this: Conforto is a starter and deserves to start. I just put it in the chat too. Like, if you toss out that the 4 for 60, it felt like he took when he came back from injury. He's had a really good season overall. I mean, he was just awful in that stretch, and now he's starting to heat up again.
I keep hearing the tossed around, Conforto sucks against lefties. Isn't he batting like over 280 against them?
Yeah, he was hitting. I don't know with today's stats. I would have to go in and double check now what it is. But yesterday, I mean, he was hitting like 294 against lefties. I mean, small sample sizes, and it's like somebody said in the chat, like, guys can carry reverse splits for a while, but I mean, in his career against lefties, he's actually been. If you looked at over the course of his career, he was solid against lefties up until about 2021. And then his 2021 and 2023 stats splits against lefties weren't really good. And so it was like.
So I was saying the guy that we have on our team that's role is to mash lefties is batting like 130 against them.
Yeah. Slater's been unplayable against all players.
I actually looked up his splits, and he's actually been better against lefties than he has righties this year by quite a bit too. 805 OPS versus lefties, 724 against righties. So,
what are we doing?
Yeah. So I don't know where that narrative's coming from. I really don't.
Makes no sense to me.
A little bit less power against lefties, but I mean, all the other numbers are totally fine.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen it. Conforto is one of those guys. He will literally carry this lineup on his own for 2 weeks straight when you let him get hot.
He was the best hitter on our team before he got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
the first month of the season.
Yeah. Prior to Ramos, he was the only one hitting. So I just feel like he's got enough of a ceiling where you're just gonna roll him out there, almost every single day as long as he's healthy. There's no reason not to. There's not really much of an upgrade, especially in the power department.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
in
my opinion, Ryan, for sure, shoulder. I'll say, in my opinion, the daily starting outfield, regardless of lefty righty matchup, should be Conforto, Ramos, Matos, and Yaz would be an ideal number 4. So it's one of those things where we're nearing the All-Star break, and clearly their approach with these platoons, especially in the outfield, isn't working. So why don't we change that up? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, of the three that they listed in the question, if it was me running the club, they hand me the GM job and getting to choose, I would be Conforto would still get to start. Matos would start in probably right field, and then I would have Yaz be the fourth outfielder, and then hold on, and then that way Nick Ahmed with his oversized helmet is getting DFA'd.
I knew it before you said it.
Oh man.
Couldn't help myself. Sorry.
That's
yeah. Nick Ahmed. I mean, he's playing because of his defense, but I'd be making a move. Yeah, the power of the Schwartz. I'd be making a move and getting a shortstop or even a second baseman. I'd be making some kind of move. Even if you want to roll Tyro and Wisely, I'll keep that. I'm cool with them starting. If you want to trade for Bichette, cool. Let Wisely play second. I mean, Wisely is so smooth over there at second base. But yeah, I mean, I'd be doing anything to get Nick Ahmed out of there.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid that Giants are going to sleep on Bichette, and then the Dodgers are going to go and make a big move for him. Because if you look at the bottom of their lineup, the bottom like four in their lineup is pretty bad. It's like how the middle of our order was for a little while there with Flores and Yaz and some of these other guys in there with like sub 600 OPSs. So Giants can't sleep on making a big move because I have a feeling they're going to go in and try to do everything they can because Dodgers surprisingly actually do have a lot of holes in their lineup this year.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, Cody knows who I want to make a move for. Nolan Jones is intriguing.
I mean, it gets interesting for the outfield. You make that move. Here's the thing, though. I don't know if you can really buy low on him. I mean, he's in his last pre-arb year next season, and then he hits arbitration. So he has 4 more years, at least 4.5. So I mean, it gets tricky. You're not going to get those guys for cheap. It's similar to like Bichette, where a lot of people think I've heard a lot of people talking about buying low on Bichette, and it's like,
yeah, it doesn't exist.
This guy's got such a track record, and it's a seller's market, and it's all these things that work against it being cheap. Like there's going to be teams interested in him, and at the end of the day, it's just not going to be cheap. Like it might be less than if he was hitting 300 right now, but not much.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I'm trying to look up a stat right here.
I do like Nolan Jones, though. I mean, he kind of can play. So
for sure.
Yeah. Well, so we're going to bring up, because there were 3 names that I've kind of heard, on the trade market. Well, 2 names that I've heard for sure probably going to get moved, especially with the Cubs being kind of diving out of it. And Dan wasn't on with us yesterday to kind of talk about Belly, so we'll talk Belly a little bit. But Cody Bellinger, Bo Bichette, Jazz Chisholm, those seem to be kind of the 3 guys. I do think Vladdy isn't going to go anywhere. I don't think Toronto it sounds like he actually, you hear how Bichette talked about the potential to get traded, and then did you hear about Vladdy?
Yep.
And how he talked? I mean, it was like night and day. Like Bichette almost sounds like, just get me the hell out of here. And Vladdy's like, no, I really want to be here. So I think they'll I do think they're going to eventually move Bichette, and then they're going to try and hang on to Vladdy. It's just my opinion on that.
I mean, they've been saying that since the rumors first came out, that it's more than likely going to be Bichette being traded over Vladdy. So, I mean, it makes sense, but you know my opinion, Cody, or you guys, I'm 100% all in on Bichette, and I would love to make that move. So it's just, it's Farhan to have the Huevitos to pull the trigger. He was hoping.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and That's the thing is everybody, says how he really had that big off season this year, which he did to an extent, but he still has yet to make that really big risk, where it's like he's putting it all on the table and he's saying, I have all my faith in this guy, and even if I have to give up a couple top prospects, I'm going to make that gamble because, in free agency, yeah, he went after Snell, he went after Soler. All these guys are on 2-3 year deals. These are not like big risky moves. Giants have tons of money to spend. Now let's, ship out a couple prospects and get a guy that more than likely is not going to sign with you in free agency. That's how you start building a team where guys are like, hey, I will actually go and play in San Francisco and hit in that ballpark because Bo's over there doing it, or whoever you may go after and get.
1,000%. Nailed it.
Yeah. But yeah, and just the protection you have. I mean, imagine being a hitter right now. I mean, before Ramos emerged, I mean, these guys, the Giants were trying to go sign, guys like Aaron Judge and Correa. And, Correa, to their credit, Correa wanted to come and he wanted to take their money. And I mean, I don't know if he really necessarily wanted to be in San Francisco more than other places, but he definitely wanted that $350 million. So, he was ready to come but trying to get, they're trying to talk a lot of these hitters into coming. And before it was like, oh yeah, you can hit with, Lamont Wade in front of you. And this is before Wade obviously is having the season he's having right now, but it was like, you can come have Lamont Wade hitting in front of you and, Mike Yastrzemski behind you. It's like, okay, yeah, no one wants to come do that. Like, that's the reality. Now, I mean, they have Wade, they have Ramos. And if you go get a guy like Bichette and you can be like, hey, you want to go hit between Bichette and Ramos? Like, guys know they'll have some protection. They'll get some good pitches to hit. Because, I mean, you're seeing it with Soler this season where he's just getting nothing to hit for much of the season. And, part of that is his own doing because he sits there and chases at everything down and away, all those sliders away. But, when they don't have to fear anyone around him, it's like, why would they give the guy that could hit 480 feet a pitch to hit that might actually burn them? So
no, it's true. And that, I feel like that's contributed to a lot of the struggles on the offense early in the year because, the big names, quote unquote, that you signed, Soler and Chapman, who do they have protecting them? They had Wilmer Flores and, Patrick Bailey. Mind you, Bailey's doing solid, but he's not a cleanup hitter. And same thing, Yastrzemski in the 5-hole, Tyro 6, like there's your backup. And it's like, all right, we can pitch around, the bigger names, so to speak. And that's where a lot of the struggles were coming from. So, I mean, I agree with that 100%. And like Ricky said, you make a big trade like that to bring in a legit offensive threat, package them around your core, quote unquote, that you have going on right now, especially with the tear Ramos has been on, one of the best outfielders in the game. All of a sudden, you're kind of an attractive lineup for, it's.
Nope. We lose him. Dan's frozen.
Maybe temporarily.
No,
there he goes.
Oh, there we go. Hey, there he is.
Yeah, I told you my power went out, so all my Wi-Fi is just booting back up, so we're good.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
But yeah, I finished my spiel right when that happened, so we're good.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know if there was more to that. I'm like,
no, okay.
Yeah. No, you're dead on there, man. I just, they're getting closer. I mean, I think they're one. I mean, they're multiple I mean, if we're looking at like what they need to be like a true contender, like they're multiple players away. Like this team's not one guy away, but I think they're one really solid player away from me feeling like really good about them as a playoff team, as a wild card team. For sure. Whether that's Bo or a healthy Jazz Chisholm, like I think they're like one really solid player away.
Did you guys already touch on the Jazz Chisholm topic?
No, we waited. We were waiting until you came in. I said we would
you guys are so
put
nice,
a halt
man.
to the. I know. I said we talked about the game. We talked about kind of their the pitching staff and the upcoming schedule and what's to follow with the schedule and kind of this where they're at. But yeah, we didn't really dive in on that. So yeah, so we'll jump in on that because we kind of started to talk about it. Obviously everybody that's listened to us talk, whether it's me and Ricky, me and Dan, what you've heard, or just me even, like you've all heard, like we all three of us really like Bo. We all believe that he can still be what he's been historically in his career. He's 26. He's got a year and a half left on his deal. It's not a rental. It gives him time. And I would make the trade, and I would just back up the Brinks truck and get him signed. Like I wouldn't mess around with that. I would just be like, whatever the number is, here's the check, write it in, let's go. And roll from there. And yeah, the last few years will suck, but that's the price of business.
Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to give Correa $350 million, like you shouldn't hesitate to give that to Bo.
Yeah,
or maybe not 350 to the extent, but you know what I mean. Giving Bo the bag, it's just what are you going to give up to get him? And I've already kind of speculated and thrown some offers at you guys, what you think. And my package in my head is something revolving around Carson Whisenhunt, Luciano, and Wade Meckler, like a package beginning of something like that. But it's definitely feasible. It's going to hurt. You say this all the time, Cody. If a trade doesn't hurt, you didn't give up enough. So that's where I would start negotiations at. And yeah, like you said, just give him a blank check. Here you go. I want to keep you 10 years.
Yeah. That's my philosophy on big trades for big players. If you don't feel like it hurt, you probably, the other team probably didn't get enough for him.
Yeah.
100 pence for Tommy Joseph.
Right.
I mean, at the time, Tommy Joseph was a second round pick and a top-ish rated prospect.
Yeah, the Giants system was really, really bad though at that time. So I remember when that trade went through, I was like, I don't give a shit. We've got Buster. I don't care about a backup catcher right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that he did absolutely nothing in Philly.
Yeah. And that's really what the Giants need. Like you see it with the Dodgers, where they can give up Kyber Ruiz, and they have Cartaya now, and they have these like super highly rated catching prospects, but they have Will Smith on a 10-year, $140 million, whatever it is, some ridiculously cheap deal for him. And it's like they have Will Smith and they don't care. Like they can trade these guys and be like, whatever, it's just, that's what the Giants need. They need to find a way to get their hands on a player that is, so good. And then you have them locked up for a long time where, whether that's at shortstop or second, whatever, just a position that they were able to make that trade for, Hunter Pence because they had Buster Posey, and they just did not care about Tommy Joseph and where, what his future was. Like it was just, you're an asset. And we're going to hold on to you until we want to go get someone. And they did. So, can you guys, okay. Yeah. We'll do Jazz Chisholm now. All right. Can you guys see what kind of prospects we would need to trade to get Bo Bichette versus Jazz Chisholm Jr.? Are there any other shortstops that are available? I'm not sure, and I don't even think Jazz is a shortstop. Me personally, if I trade for Jazz Chisholm, I'm either going to be putting him at second base and having Wisely play shortstop, or I am going to, and that's, or you're putting him out in the outfield, whether that's center or right field, which Ramos has done admirable in center. Jazz is kind of, I've kind of looked at his, from what I've seen, he's fine in center field. I don't think he's like great or anything like that, but he's looked fine in center. But you're either going to me, you either put him at second or center field. I don't put him at short. He is atrocious at shortstop. Like everyone gets on Luciano and you put him out there and it's going to look a lot like that. So I would not put him at short personally.
Here's my take on the two. Bo, I would 100% both trade two legit prospects for him, and I would give him, honestly, like what Dan was saying, I'd give him a Correa type contract, maybe even a little bit more, since we're going to be looking at about 4 years past when that contract to Correa got dished out. And they're hitting free agency at the same time. Bichette will be 28 when he hits free agency, and Correa was 28 at the time the Giants try to sign him. Jazz is going to be 29 when he hits free agency, with an extra year on his current contract. But the difference is with Jazz, not only the defense, but the guy doesn't stay healthy. I mean, the guy has played 100 games in his career one time. I don't know. I'm not the biggest Jazz fan personally. The thing you could say though is the trade package would be a lot smaller for someone like him, in my opinion, than Bo. I mean, Bo's got a way higher ceiling, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not sure what it would take to get a Jazz. You might still have to give up like a top 100 prospect just because there is some team control there, but I personally wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Did you see Bowden's?
See what?
Oh, did you see Bowden's or Jim Bowden, whatever? Jim Bowden's trade package for Jazz.
Yeah, outrageous.
Yeah, Luciano, Wisenhunt, and Matos.
Yeah, just
like maybe two of those. I mean, maybe two of those guys. To me, it's a much. It's probably just because of the contract. Honestly, just because he's under contract for cheap for a while. That's my guess. That they think that he would.
That's why.
Jazz has not put up a season with a 800 plus OPS in any season other than the 2022 season. He only played 60 games. So he's a very overrated player, and he's already, 26, I believe?
He's 26.
Yeah, he's 26 years old. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here's my thing, though. The one attribute that Jazz would bring to this team that the team lacks and has lacked for quite some time is personality. That's the biggest thing that he would bring. He would bring energy. He would bring swagger. He would bring personality. That's the biggest thing that you would get with Jazz Chisholm at this moment. So I'm in the same boat as both of you. It's not one of those things where I want to go out and, try my hardest to bring Jazz onto the team. But if it's feasible and you can get him for a lot cheaper than what Bowden is projecting, I mean, I'm sure you can find a role for him. The only problem is where are you going to play him? Because like you guys touched on, he would be ideal at second. You got Tyro. He'd be cool in center. You got Ramos. Okay, maybe you can slide him to corner outfield.
Lee.
Exactly, and Lee next year. But it's like where are you gonna slide these guys at? You got Matos that wants time. You got Conforto that's under contract for this year. You got Yaz, who is like a son to Farhan. So it's like where are you gonna plug him in at? So it's one of those things where it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if it did, you'd have a pretty fun young team with Jazz and Ramos and Matos and bring some life into Soler. So it'd be cool, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, and you can see why they're like, when you look at what Jazz has done year to year, throwing out, like, I mean, the games, obviously, like, that's the biggest concern, like Ricky said, where, you look at his game totals. I don't really care about 2020. He was just a call up that season, but he played 124 in 2021 and he played 60, 97. And then this season he's played 84. So he's stayed healthy this season so far. But, and you can see when you look at the numbers in each of these seasons, kind of why why a lot of teams would be interested. His best season, the one where he stayed healthy in 2021, he had 18 homers, 23 stolen bases. So and that was in 124 games. In 2022, when he only had 241 plate appearances because he played in 60 games. He had 14 home runs and 12 stolen bases in 60 games. So, I mean, I get how he's kind of viewed as like a potential for a 30-30 season, but he just hasn't stayed healthy to do it. Last season with 97 games, he had, 19 home runs and 22 stolen bases. So, I mean, yeah, he probably has that upside. And like you guys said, he has the swagger. He has, he's got a lot of charisma to him. He clearly, I do think he's a guy that maybe if you get him on a team that's winning, it might elevate his game a little bit. Cause I mean, I think some of it right now playing in, cause right now you look at his numbers and they're kind of underwhelming. He's hitting 259, which actually is better than his career average with a 742 OPS. And he has, 15 stolen bases. He's also been thrown out 8 times. So they're not going to like that. And 10 home runs. So, I mean, it's kind of underwhelming overall numbers. 26 extra base hits right now total. But he's kind of floundering, pun intended, over in Florida right now. And for Miami, he's just left there to, on this awful, just god awful team. And, some guys, they just struggle to give a crap in those situations, which, I mean, I'm not a fan if they can't just get themselves up to, try and do their best still, obviously. But I do wonder if he's a guy that, like, if he got moved into the middle of a playoff race, if suddenly, his game steps up a bit. Yeah, there's always that potential. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't. I mean, he's an exciting player. I just depends on the haul.
Exactly.
So, that guy's a unit, man. I
Me and Cody have been barking up that tree for months now.
Yeah. The funny thing is, okay, I'm assuming you guys all saw the wonderful effort play he put in a couple nights ago to end the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
He had to have forgotten how many outs there were. He had to have felt there was 2 outs. I mean, I don't know how you don't even make the throw. I mean, but the Chicago White Sox have found about every which way to lose games this season. So, I mean, add it to the list, I guess. But then the following day, he makes like an incredible diving grab. Like, he is a good defender. That was just a mental thing. That was just bad.
Yeah, I was like, what was that?
Yeah, no, he would look good. He cost a pretty penny. I looked a couple days ago. His OPS is up to 825, so he's having a good. His average I think was up to like 225, and it's starting to recover. He's not played in many games this season.
Yeah,
I laughed because people were like, he's hitting a $198, and I'm like, he's played in like 12 games. Like,
right.
120 at bats. Like, come on, man. 10 homers and 120 at bats. I think I'll take that.
Yeah, he'd be what, third in the team in homers?
Yeah. Yeah.
With like a third of the at bats of guys like Chapman, like crazy.
I remember joking about it on Bleacher Report, but Ahmed took, I think, 120 something at bats or 130 at bats to get his first homer. Luis Robert has 10 homers in that same time frame. So,
yeah.
I remember when Ahmed hit that, Cody was like, he swung with all of his might. He put all of his power into it, and it went 4 rows up in the bleachers.
That was a two-cheek swing, guys. That he barreled. I mean, off the bat, and I'm not trying to pick on Ahmed here, but man, off the bat, that thing, a normal player, like if Chapman made that kind of contact on that swing, that thing might have like clear, or Soler, like that thing's like up at the top of the bleachers or clearing him, right? And Ahmed, like it off the bat, it had the trajectory and everything. And I was like, oh man, Ahmed crushed it. And then it just kind of died like 4 rows up. And I'm like, dude, this guy has no pop.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh man. But yeah, I would like Robert. I mean, it's actually funny because one of my biggest complaints for years, and this has been like with the Giants' lack of power, and now they have Soler, obviously, and Ramos. But, last season I used to joke, I'm like, they don't even have guys that look intimidating in the box. You had Potbelly Jock Peterson, had probably the most pop on the team. You had JD, who, I mean, yes, he has really good power, but like he doesn't look like a power hitter. And now you've got Soler, and then you have Ramos, who's just built like a freaking tank. I mean, you finally have guys that look jacked that are standing in the box that actually look like they have power, which is nice. Yeah, we'll see how it translates, but yeah,
Soler is a unit.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely scary to see. But you mean Wilmer isn't intimidating in the box, Cody?
Wilmer has some of the greatest bat speed this planet's ever seen, and the game of baseball's ever seen.
It's like what, 78 miles per hour, something like that?
I think it's like so low that it like. No, I said bat speed, not exit velocity.
Oh, yeah, my bad. It's funny. I look on Stats Savant whenever I need a good laugh. I look at his Stats Savant, and it's like, oh, he's in the 1 percentile. Nice, man.
I pulled that up on NorCal the other day. I was like, hey, you guys will love this. Cue the Benny Hill music. God. All right, well, here, I'll ask, Ricky and I touched on this one the other day. I know how he feels about it, but, the people here haven't gotten to hear him talk about it yet, Dan. What would your thoughts be on Cody Bellinger?
Is this for me or for Ricky?
It's for you. Ricky and I kind of talked about it yesterday. I mean, we'll chime in for those that didn't see yesterday's show, but
my thoughts are do it. I wanted him in the offseason. He's a legit 4 to 5 tool player. Like, I saw somebody say that Wade's better than him. It's like, no, he's not. Wade's having a good year, but he's not better. You can plug Bellinger at all 3 outfield positions. You can plug him in at first base. You can plug him at DH for the left-handed side. He's going to bring you speed. He's going to steal bases for you. I think he only has like 6 on the year, but he did 20 last year. He's going to give you pop. He's going to get you, hits in the gap. He's going to drive runs in. He's going to bring you, most importantly, a Gold Glove defense. I told Cody this yesterday, the day before. He's got 1,000 fielding percentage, and he's played at 4 different positions this year. So you do it. Like, I don't know why they didn't sign him in the offseason. I was, barking up that tree, sign Cody, never did it. But yeah, if you can get Cody Bellinger, you get Cody Bellinger. That's my thought.
Yeah, I was willing to give him a long-term deal.
Same.
Not even on the opt-out contract that he got. Like, I was all for go get the guy on a long-term deal.
But Ricky, exit velocity.
Yeah. Hey, there are those that will tell you that a hard hit out is better than a bloop single. I care about results personally.
You look at the box score, it's all the same.
Yeah.
But that was the biggest knock. That's the biggest knock that I heard all offseason when I was telling them to sign him. Oh, but his exit velocity, blah, blah, blah. It's like, shut up, dude. He gets on base.
Yeah. He's quietly hitting 274. He's got a 756 OPS. Let me pull up his overall. I'm going to eyeball the walks here. 30 and his walk rate's down this season. Honestly, that's kind of the big difference. He's slugging a little bit, slugging's down and his OPS, his on-base percentage are both down from last season. But, so his OPS is down 125 points and he still has a 756 he still has a 756 OPS. Like, and that could just as easily go up as the season goes. Like, he's a legit middle of the order bat, even right now. Like, and part of that is because he's a good run producer. He's good situationally. He's good at getting the bat on the ball. He's not striking out much. Like, these are all things that to me matter in the middle of the order. It's not just like how many homers do you hit, like how many, do I want 50 extra base hits out of whoever's in the middle of my lineup? Sure. Like, yeah, I do want that. But, even right now he's got 9 home runs and 15 doubles and a triple. So he has, quick math, it's 25 extra base hits about halfway through the season. So he's on pace for about 50, which that'd be a good season if he hits, roughly 30 doubles and 20 homers. And maybe he hits about 280, which is I always felt like he'd probably be somewhere in the 270, 280 range. Before, even in the offseason, that's what I said. And to me, it was just, can he hit for some pop? Can he steal some bags, which I would want to see improve? And can he play Gold Glove defense? And then, just do what he does in the box, because he drives runs. He drives and runs. Like, that's his thing. 37.
Yeah, and then
he has 75 games. Is what he's played.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted him before the season started as well. I mean, just the defensive versatility alone makes such a big difference because then you're not pigeonholed with a guy like Soler. You know, he's starting to pick it up a little bit, obviously, but at least with Bellinger, you're getting, like Dan said, really legit defense in multiple positions. And then you don't really need to worry about holding on to a guy like Yaz when he's down to like 198 in April or whatever. You know, you have that flexibility because, you know, Bellinger can slide out there or he can fill in at first when Wade's hurt. You know, you have way more options, but you know, I don't know if he just really wanted to go back to Chicago, like one of the commenters is saying, or if he just really didn't want to come to San Francisco or just the money wasn't there. But I mean, for his contract, I would have 100% done that. And I just don't think they're in a position where they could probably make that trade this year unless they cut ties with a couple of vets.
And I think that's where the root of the problem is at, personally speaking. I mean, you guys know how I feel about a lot of the veterans on the team. It's like it goes hand in hand with all these guys, man. How are you going to make adjustments that are going to upgrade your weaker positions on the team if you're not willing to cut ties with some of these loose ends? The Wilmer Flores, the Mike Yastrzemski, the Austin Slater. It's like I touched on this a couple weeks ago. It's like the majority of the obsession from the fan base with these guys comes from a sentimental value and a relishing on the past. You know, it's more of like, oh, but you know, we have such good memories with them. It's like, yes, but it comes a time where if you want to make these upgrades, you want to get the Cody Bellinger, you want to get the Luis Robert, you want to get the Bo Bichettes, you want to get the Jazz Chisholms. Like, if you want to make these necessary upgrades, you have to cut ties with your loose ends, or else there's just no room for them on the team. And that's where it all comes down to, and that's why I keep pounding my fists on the table on a daily basis when I see Yaz go for 4 with 4 strikeouts, or Austin Slater go 0 for 5 against lefties in an extra inning game, and you know, Wilmer Flores batting 160 for the month of June. It's like, this is why I say these things. It's not to hate. It's not to be negative. It's the fact where I know where the weak points are on this team. And there's guys out there that we can make a move for to address that. But because of the sentimental value, it's just not happening.
Yeah. And I mean,
no, I completely agree.
Going back to, you know, getting a star type player in here too to bring other free agents in, it's also huge for the development of guys like Luciano, Ramos, Matos. You need some kind of star player in their prime that can kind of lead the way for these younger guys, and you can kind of build around that and help groom those guys as they come up. You know, it's a huge difference maker. And that can be homegrown as well. You know, Ramos could eventually be that guy, but, you know, he's still only 24. Someone like Bichette, being a couple years older and is a guy who's done it, you know, 4 or 5 seasons in a row, over 800 OPS seasons, just been pretty damn consistent offensively. It's a big difference maker, you know, when you have all these young guys you're trying to bring up all at the same time, generally.
100%.
Yeah, and I'm going to expand on what Dan was saying a little bit. Like, there's just a select few right now that are really kind of what's dragging the team. And I mean, I completely agree. Like, I think if you could pick 4 players off this roster right now and just addition by subtraction, essentially, and just remove Slater, Ahmed, Flores, and Jackson. You can just get those guys off and replace them. There's internal replacements for virtually all of them, whether that's playing wisely, bringing Schmidt back up, who, oh, by the way, looked pretty solid the second time he came up this season, and then got like a limited opportunity before getting kicked back to Sacramento, and he knows he's blocked. And he's having a good season in Sacramento, showing growth. You know, that's an option, playing wisely there and bringing Luciano to play second. I mean, there are internal young options. Matos in the outfield, pick an arm in the bullpen. Any of them are probably better than what Jackson's given you, especially when especially when some of these guys get kind of kicked back to their traditional roles in the bullpen once some of these starters are back. And then really like VR has looked better. And I mean, I always, it's kind of like Dan said, you get a lot of people saying, well, it's a sentimental thing. Like Slater was good years ago. Ahmed was good. He was a Gold Glover 4 or 5 years ago. Flores, he hit 20 something home runs last season. And I mean, all I have to say to any of that is what year is it? And
that's my favorite gift.
Those guys are terrible. That's my favorite. I have another one that's now every time Luis Matos hits a line drive, but I'm not going to post that one in here because we're trying to keep this appropriate, family friendly. But for those that have seen Forgetting Sarah Marshall, there is a Jonah Hill gif that you all know what I'm talking about.
That's hilarious.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean that's all I had in the chat for questions. I mean, or in what we got sent to us. Does anybody have any? I don't know if you guys have anything in particular you want to talk about. Everyone that's in the chat right now, if you guys have anything you want to hear about, any questions you want us, subjects, whatever, anything, just shoot them. I don't have anywhere I got to be. I don't know what you guys are doing on time, but yeah.
I'll give you guys a list of the players whose faces I hate the most. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I mean, I can go ahead and venture to guess the top two, and then the 1 and 1A, and then after that, one had 3 different facial hairstyles this season, and the other one, he'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour.
He had more facial hairstyles than he did RBIs in the first 2.5 months this season.
Yeah.
I will say my favorite possible trade that could happen would be if the Giants were to trade for Wilmer Flores, his brother, Wilmer Flores, in the Tiger system. For Dan.
No. Don't you put that evil on me. I'll be angry.
In fairness to his brother, he doesn't look like a Chihuahua like our Wilmer does.
A Chihuahua.
Insert the crying face. We've got a Chihuahua and a gnome.
Chihuahua and gnome.
That's hilarious.
Cody, we have a horse, but I won't say who that is.
Yeah. For the chat, I told everybody. I told them in the group chat earlier. I was gonna wear a gnome outfit for Halloween this season with a banana, like the big banana outfit, and I was gonna tell everybody that I was Brett Wisely. All right, Brett asks.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say I'll get a trash can costume. I'll say I'm Austin Slater.
Dude, I think they just need us on the Giants marketing team, man. You know how much money we can make that team with all these costumes? Screw the panda hats and the giraffe hats. We got all sorts of ideas.
I get fired 30 minutes into my shift, bro.
Yeah. I still thought, yes, he had the PEDs and and everything, but I still thought the Milkman was hilarious.
Yeah.
When Melky was here.
I liked Melky, bro, up until we got busted, but any players
Brett asked,
any players
go for it.
I was gonna any players you want the Giants to for the draft. I know what you mean. That's more of a question for Ricky.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna defer over there because
up there. There. Okay.
Because I know the Giants farm system really well. I am not very well versed. I'm one of those people that when they draft the guys, I'll go in and kind of take deeper dives on them once they've already picked them. It's not like the NFL where I have a clue. Like it's baseball.
See,
I don't know much about these guys before.
See, that's why the three of us mesh well just in general, because Cody's really good at farm system, Ricky's really good prospects, and I am good at making fun of players' faces. No, I'm just kidding. I'm knowledgeable with players on other teams and trade ideas and speculations and rumors and stuff like that. That's where I specialize in. But yeah, Ricky, I'll pass this one to you.
We need to get Robin here. Because he'll tell you about some shortstop in Double-A on the Yankees.
Dude, Rob will tell you about some second baseman coming from Venezuela. Like,
yeah.
That dude's got, I don't know.
He'll be like, my third cousin told me that this guy is going to clear he's going to get his visa in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Gotta check him out. He's got a cannon and a slick glove.
He's like, bro, he's 17. He's just about to get entered in the draft. His name is Fernando Pablo Sanchez III. He mashed in Venezuela, bro. I'm telling you, this is who the next guy. And I'm like, bro, what are you saying?
Yeah, we need to get Robin here. He'd be telling us who we need to trade. And like I said, it would be a guy that's blocked in another system. and I would have no clue who the guy even is.
Yeah, I'd feel like he's speaking in tongues or something. That bro, yeah, he knows a lot. I'd be like, what's
it? Is it from like Guardians of the Galaxy where they say a place and he's like, Drax is like, that word's made up.
Yeah,
like,
bro, that's it.
He pulls up. I'm like, that name's made up. That guy doesn't exist.
That's funny.
Oh man.
Anyways, to the question.
Take it away, Ricky. Sorry.
So I'm kind of in the same boat as Cody a little bit. I do a little bit more research on guys after the draft typically. However, there is one name I really would prefer they avoid that gets mocked to the Giants a lot, and that's Cam Caminiti. He's a lefty high school arm. I really am hoping they don't go that route again, personally. I think they really need to get a developed college bat, power bat in the system, somebody that can move up within the next couple of years for sure. I mean, they're picking in the middle of the first round, and as most of us know, with Snell and Chapman getting signed, they do not have their second and third rounders this year. So they really need to get somebody that is going to be a high floor player, somebody that's not going to be taking 4 or 5 years to get through the system, in my opinion. And something I've kind of brought up, which people might think I'm crazy for saying, is I honestly would have no problem with them taking like a college catcher in this draft somewhere higher up, because they do not have much catching depth in the system at all. As we know, Bailey, he's had some head injuries and he's a little bit sketchy with the fundamentals from time to time with the way he ball blocks. But even then, honestly, you can never go wrong with drafting catchers high in the draft, especially if, you know, they have a bat too. You see it all the time with some of these better organizations. They go and take these college catchers and then they move through their system quick. And then if you don't feel like there's a need for a catcher, then you go and trade them for, you know, a proven position player, a proven arm at the trade deadline in a future season. Cody just brought it up a little bit ago. The Dodgers have 2 top catching prospects in their system, with Will Smith starting, who's going to be there for a while. So you can't go wrong with that. There is a kid that's projected to go in the back end of the first out of Stanford. He's there. I probably wouldn't do that in the first. There is a kid out of Cal as well. I personally keep going with the trend of going with a college middle infielder. That's probably the route I would go, personally, because we do have Eldridge, who's moving quick, but with him being a high school kid last year, we still need to be patient with him, give him a couple more years. I would definitely go with a college middle infielder in this draft.
Yeah. I'll go because I don't know enough about the players themselves. I heard a lot of people talking about, like, the names I've heard are Cam Caminiti. I'm going to switch over to this one from Brett. They brought up Nick Kurtz, who I've seen projected as high as like the top 5. And then today he was randomly projected to the Giants. I don't know if there's a reason for that drop or just that's how they kind of projected that one to shake out. I mean, you know, there are things where it's not always like the best player getting taken. Sometimes they get agreements for guys under slots and things like that. I would say my one philosophical thing for this draft, I do agree a college bat probably feels like a better way to go this draft given their limited picks early. But my one philosophical thing is, historically with Zaidi, he has taken a guy that he can get under slot in the first round. And that way he can try and essentially double up on his first round picks, because then he'll follow up and take a guy that was viewed as a first round pick that maybe dropped due to, signability questions. We'll call it that, So he'll end up getting a guy in the second and third round way over slot after paying a guy way under slot in the first round. Last season, I don't know if Eldridge, I think, actually was not very far under slot, but then he went and got Walker Martin and paid him way more than his slot value in the second round.
Wasn't that the case with Ahuna as well? Wasn't he projected first round? And they got him like the third.
Yeah. And then and now Ahuna, college guy that was I think he was a college senior too, and like that, he didn't really have to go over slot because those guys have no what are they going to not go to pro ball at that point? Like they don't really have the leverage of saying like, oh, I'll just go to college or I'll go back to school. Brett says he likes Christian Moore. I've heard that name a lot. But my thing where I'm going with that is, philosophically, take the best damn player. Like, just take the best guy, whatever position, whatever situation. I would prefer a college guy, but like, take the best player, and, slot cost, whatever the signing is going to take relative slot, be damned. I don't care. Like, just take the best guy. I don't want them to play that game again this year especially without having a second and third round pick.
A name I saw a lot get tossed around. I just looked it up because I was like, I don't want to botch his name. It was Honeycutt, the outfielder from North Carolina. I've heard a lot of Big Pop. I've heard a lot of rumors about him, or a lot of speculation that he may be the move. But I was like, what's his name? Honeycomb, something like that.
Yeah.
So I had
to Vance. He was from North Carolina, I think.
Yeah. He has some swing and miss to his game, but a lot of power.
And the Giants, like, I'm fine with swing and miss and power. Like we have it with Ramos right now, where and the K percentage he's getting, we kind of talked about that earlier. It's getting into a respectable range. Yeah. And the whiff percentage, it's still, he was like 13th percentile, I think, the last time I looked at his whiff rate. You get guys like Harrison, or like, sorry, I read the comment from Dan on Harrison. I see that you get guys like Ramos who have swing and miss, but they're still really effective players, and you want a couple guys like that. Where I'd want to see some guys, I do want to start seeing some guys that have a little more contact skills, just because I'm a believer in balance. And to me, that means you need a good mixture of contact and power and swing and miss or whatever in your lineup. You also need a balance when it comes to speed, which that has been non-existent with the Giants for a long time. So like, I'm a believer in getting more balance and more length into the lineup as a whole. So if you can get a college guy that's, whatever fits whatever mold there, like that's the one concern I'd have with a guy like Honeycutt, is they already have a ton of guys similar to that. Now, maybe his power play is way better than what they currently have, maybe outside of Ramos, but like maybe his power plays at a much higher level. So it might be worth it at that point.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The other guy Brett brought up as well, Christian Moore, he would make a ton of sense as a Farhan guy too, because of the exit velo. And then he's more of a bat first middle infielder, but he's another guy that you might be able to just get straight up through your system real quick. He was at Tennessee, I believe, this year. He obviously won the national championship. So, I mean, that might be another play too. But like you said, Cody, honestly, I would not be surprised at all if they go with a guy that, was projected more in the back end of the first round, and then save some of that money cheaper in the 4th round and get somebody that fell a little bit. Yeah, honestly, that's totally possible. And like I said, in the back end of the 1st, you're looking at a couple college catchers that can hit. So that could be a move as well. Because, you can't always pick for, especially in baseball, you can't be picking for current need. You got to just kind of get best player and do the value move like Farhan likes to do.
Hey, here's my prediction for the Giants. They're going to end up getting 2 first-rounders this season, and it's because they're going to draft one, and then they're going to take Anthony Rendon from the Angels for whoever their first-round pick is.
Oh, oh man, Larry would lose his mind. Larry and Derek would lose their minds.
I would lose my mind at that trade. That would be brutal. But no, I don't think they would do someone with a long-term deal. But they did that with Cozart, and I kind of wonder, with only the 1 first-rounder, like I could totally see Farhan taking a salary dump to get someone's like 1st or 2nd round pick this season, taking like a 1-year dump of a contract.
See, as much as we like to joke about the Will Wilson move, like I am totally fine with him doing that all day. I don't care about them wasting money. It's not my money. Why do I care? There's no salary cap. Go and do it. Get it. It's a high upside move. And, there's situations where a guy like Will Wilson doesn't work out. Who cares? You lost some money for a year or 2. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would do that. I would make trades like that all day. That's actually, of all the things Farhan has done since being here, like when he made that trade, I think that was his first season too when he did that. When he made that trade, like I was actually impressed with I thought it was kind of a savvy thing to do, like, and creative. I mean, you don't see moves like that made really. So I was like, I thought, like I said, I thought it was just a creative way to go get an asset. Now, it hasn't worked. Wilson obviously just hasn't panned out as a prospect, but I don't hate it. Like, obviously, it ended up being a bad trade at the end of the day, just because you paid a guy, you basically paid $12 million for a guy that can't get out of AA. But it shouldn't, it shouldn't stop him from making a move like that again, in my opinion.
That trade gave poor Larry PTSD, though.
He makes another one. He's gonna be like, "Whoa, God, here we go." Oh God, yeah. But circling back on what Brett said, Nick Kurtz, they have Eldridge, hard to pass on that kind of. I mean, yeah, if a guy like him falls, to me, I throw that in the bucket of good problems to have. If both guys pan out. That could be a situation where maybe you keep him and maybe he turns into a top 50 prospect or something like that. And then you trade him in a couple of years because you like Eldridge, or whatever, or you're insulated a little bit in case one of them doesn't, if Eldridge suddenly hits a wall in AA or high A or wherever, and you kind of sour on him, you might have insulated yourself a little bit and have another guy that's right there that could end up being good. Or maybe they're both really damn good and you can change one of their positions. I mean, Eldridge has already played in right field a little bit in pro ball. You have the DH spot that'll be available in 2.5 years. I mean, there's options. I'm just a big best player available, even if that's a catcher. If you take a catcher and Bailey gets healthy and stays healthy and doesn't demonstrate more concussion issues and things like that and cleans up some defense, then if that catcher that you draft ends up being really good, like the Dodgers are doing with their guys, trade him. Go get a star.
I love that. I love this dude's name. Sorry to interrupt. I just saw the comment coming. It's your boy fun Captain PK Man OG. That sounds like a good strain at the weed store right there.
Why is Farhan? I am not reading it out loud, but hey.
Why is Farhan? Okay, yeah. Why is he? I don't know. Is he? Yep.
Yeah. Farhan is Farhan. Like I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a guy that you'd talk to, and if you didn't know he ran the Giants, you'd probably think he's an okay dude. But yeah, and I'm sure if he was running the Dodgers like he ran the Dodgers, or like he's running the Giants right now, I think he's a pretty okay guy. But like, yeah, that's all I got. Anybody else got anything else?
Guys.
Oh, okay.
I got a question for you guys.
Go for it.
Who ends up on the team longer, Wilmer and Yaz or Farhan?
You're gonna make me punch something right now.
Wilmer and Yaz. Like
know.
Total time with the club or total time, or like who is still here?
Who is still here in the future?
Okay.
Wilmer and Yaz, and it could just be one of those two or Farhan.
Yaz is a wild card because he's got an. I mean, they're both technically under contract. I do think Wilmer is like getting very close to being dropped. Like I do believe that. We make all the jokes all day long about Farhan holding on to these guys and not being willing to. I do get the feeling that Wilmer is getting close. Like they might give him like another, as the deadline approaches, I can see him. I don't think Yaz is going anywhere in this season. I think he's a non-tender candidate, but as they just showed last offseason, they're willing to pay Alex Cobb $10 million to rehab. So I can't sit here and say, $10 million from Yaz is going to really make them bat their eye, or
No.
I think Farhan. I think Farhan's here longer than the two of them. That's just me being honest. Because I'll tell you why. Because they had already offered Farhan a 3-year contract to go with Bomels. Yeah. I don't think they're going to interrupt that this offseason. I think it's a 3-year plan regardless with the two of them. Wilmer's contract, technically he has a player option after this year, or as a team option. He has an option of some sort. His contract's technically
he has a player option,
and the buyout's like $2 million or $2.5 million or something like that.
I'll pitch in on that to get him off the team. Goodness.
I'll give my $5. I'm out of here.
I'll give the team a portion of my paycheck each month so it keeps them off the team. Slater, yeah, just call it Wilmer insurance. And if you need Slater insurance, just call it a trash fee. Slater's gonna go, yeah. But
I think he's close too.
I think they're both close.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, they would have been cut yesterday. Yeah. But I don't know. I think this is their last year. I think Farhan's got another 3.
I think Farhan. I'm going to add on a little bit to what I was saying. I do think Farhan. I think we're going to have a good feeling on how, and I don't remember if I said this with you yesterday, Ricky, or when I was on NorCal. I've gone live like every day this week, but which is very abnormal. Don't get used to it, everybody. Wife and baby are out of town, so I got to, do all these lives all week. But I'll expand on that just because we're gonna. I think we're gonna have a good feeling where Farhan is, and as far as his job security goes, when we get to the deadline, because if he kind of just sits on his hands again, unless there's just like something from ownership where they're like, we're not letting you take on any money, like, dude, you've spent enough of our money, like unless there's something like that in place that we're not aware of. But I just don't think that if he doesn't do anything, part of me feels like that's his way of showing like my job security is fine. Like he's not going anywhere. And I think that he set himself up, whether we like it or not, he set himself up with a kind of built-in injury excuse where he basically just said, I'm going to just, we just need to tread water and stay in the race until these guys all get healthy. And as of right now, they've done that to an extent. They're only one game under 500 now. And if they can finish the first half strong, before the All-Star break, they have an opportunity to be like a game over 500 or a game under, right around there. And he's done what they've kind of said they were trying to do, like hang in there and then get healthy with the pitching. And then if the pitching comes in and does what it's supposed to do, they're in a spot to compete. And I don't think that they're gonna hold it against him, especially regardless of if it was his if he got bailed out by guys getting hurt and whatnot. But like the fact that a guy like Elliot Ramos is a young player that's doing well, and then yes, Brett Wisely was a Farhan find, and I think it's a pretty solid one. He's showing that they got him for very cheap. Some of these young players coming up and doing well, and if Hayden Birdsong throws the ball well 4 or 5 more times before they eventually probably have to push him out of the rotation. But if he throws the ball 4 or 5 more times, there's just so many little things that they're going to just look at and be like, oh, well, we feel good about the direction of the club. And, whether we like it or not, that's kind of how I think that the ownership and everyone's going to look at it. They're just going to think that they played meaningful baseball late in the season. People kept showing up to the yard. He did get, now they have a little bit of star power with guys like Elliot Ramos. Now we'll see if he sustains it. Hopefully he does, because he's the most exciting player they've had in years. But yeah, that's my thoughts. So I don't think Farhan's going anywhere unless the bottom falls out. And I thought they were at risk for it for a minute, but
God bless Ramos.
I know for a guy that he blocked with AJ Pollock and Wade Meckler, and even let Jock Peterson take reps in left field over playing him at all last season, Ramos has, kind of saved his ass. It's the nicest way I can put it.
Yeah.
I think if Farhan can do anything at all to really gain my respect, it's before Yaz's contract is up, exercise the rest of those minor league options. I want to see it at like 34 years old, send him down to Sacramento. Just a total troll move, and then be like, all right, you can go back to Baltimore.
Yeah.
If Farhan cuts if he cuts Slater, Wilmer, Jackson, and Ahmed and Tom Murphy, I will go to the team store in San Francisco and customize a Farhan jersey, and I will wear that every episode.
And what number?
I was just gonna ask that.
It'll be 69.
Yeah,
I knew that was gonna be.
I almost was gonna suggest that, but I was like, I'm gonna leave it to Dan.
Oh, dude, I'll get a City Connect. I'll put the cruise patch on it, bro. I won't ever say a bad word about Farhan again if he does that.
That's hilarious.
Oh man.
Yeah. Ryan says, Oh yeah. I'm gonna expand on the Yazing. I laughed before the season when they did the game against Sacramento.
Yeah.
And they were, they played it in Sacramento for that one in preseason, whatever we want to call it. And they talked to Yaz because they're like, oh, you went through a lot of grind and a lot of struggles, and like, what's your advice to these guys? And my immediate reaction was, get some dirt on your president, because that's about the only way you've stuck around as long as you have. Any chance we receive, I think you're saying Sable gets a chance to in the big leagues again. I think eventually. Weird situation. They have right now he's not a strong defender. And as many of you guys have heard me say in the past, your backup catcher's primary duty is defense, like handling the staff, playing solid defense. That's why I hated the Tom Murphy signing. I think it was you don't sign a backup catcher for his bat. To me, that's just stupid, and bad business. But
what bad?
I think Sable needs to change positions more than likely. Although I will give him credit, he impressed me when he came up last time. His ball blocking clearly was much better than it was in 2023. Now, was it good? Not really, but it was much improved. He was no longer the worst ball blocker I've ever seen watching professional baseball at any level. So that was a step forward.
I think it also depends on what position is he going to play. Sorry, Ricky. Because they've played him at left, they played him at catcher, they played him at first. So it's like you kind of have to find a role for him before you can consider bringing him on the big league team full time. That's all I was going to say. You can go, Ricky.
Yeah, one thing I will say too is keep an eye on Sacramento because they traded for a guy named Logan Porter, and he's been taking a lot of reps at catcher down there right now. And he is 2 years older than Sable, but he's hitting the ball a lot better than Sable has all year. I'm not 100% sure on the scouting report on his defense because I haven't watched a ton of him. He's only been with the team for, I think, a few weeks now, but he has a lot better track record as a hitter, so he might be their catching depth going forward. If something does happen to Casale or Bailey, for that matter. And, I mean, who knows with Tom Murphy, but hopefully we don't see him again this year.
I do think, like, if Bailey was to get hurt, I think you would see Sable get called up, and Sable would start most of the time, at least against righties, you know? Like, I don't think they would just turn to Kurt Casale as an everyday catcher. Like, I don't think you can really do that. It's a weird situation because he's currently the backup, but I think, just my opinion, if that were to happen, like, you would see a Sable or Porter come up and play a significant role.
Well, here's my question. What do they do when Tom Murphy is healthy? Do they roll with him? Because they signed him to what? Like a $7 million contract? So do they roll with Murphy as the backup, even though Casale is night and day better than him? Do you just cut the loss with Murphy? Or do you cut Casale and say, oh, we got to pay this guy? You know, and we don't say this name, Tom. This name is forbidden.
Tom, what I would say on this is at the time, Sable only had played like 44 innings at first. He hadn't really played much of it. It was something they had talked about trying to do, and he got limited reps, and then they put him back at catcher, and he was catching a ton. Lately, he's been playing more first base, though. So, yeah. Hey, Brooks cleared waivers. Who would have thought that?
I'm shocked.
Shocker.
Yeah. I was trying to see what Sable's numbers were, but he didn't play today, so I'd have to go back to yesterday's game. McRae hit 2 doubles, though, and Schmidt had 1.
Nice.
There's some other updates, too. Rainer Arias, 4 for 5 tonight.
Get hot, young man.
I'm glad he's finally healthy.
Crazy, but yeah.
Yes. Sable's hitting 225 with a 678 OPS in Sacramento. Like, he played well in he played well in, you know, San Francisco in his limited role, but, you know, kind of similar to how Luciano struggled. Like, I just don't, or has struggled in Sacramento. I just don't think they're going to give him that opportunity this season unless just there's a significant amount of injuries.
Hey, I was going to say he's batting higher. He has a higher batting average than Wilmer and Slater.
Low bar, man. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Joe Whitman, 6 scoreless, 3 hits, 7 Ks today.
Nice.
Trying to see what Eldridge did. Eldridge took an 0 for 3. That might be his first 0 for in Eugene.
Yeah. 1,000 OPS in Eugene.
Jeez.
Foster hit a homer.
Oh, here you go. Jonah Cox stole his 47th bag of the season.
Jesus.
He was honestly such a good pickup.
Yeah. Hey, we're doing a lot of we're giving Farhan a lot of credit right now. We might need to pump the brakes, boys.
We're being nice.
Yeah. No, that I've said that was a really good move by Farhan. Like, I don't like to give credit. I didn't want to give a whole ton of credit in the offseason just because, I mean, you get some for pivoting off of a mistake. And, you know, obviously Stripling was, and, you know, Haniger was, and stuff like that. Like, you get a little bit of credit for those. And, you know, if Robbie Ray ends up being Robbie Ray next season and the following season is like a solid pitcher, like, you give him a lot of credit for that trade too, for pivoting off Haniger. But, I mean, the Stripling one, like, I mean, it was just a salary dump, but And when they traded for Jonah Cox, I kind of looked at him. I'm like, oh, he's got a nice little hit tool, and sounds like he was a solid player in college. And I mean, good God, all he's done in the Pro Bowl is rake, and he steals a ton of bags. Like, this isn't Meckler where, I mean, he has limited power, but like, this isn't Meckler where he just hits for a high average and he has speed, but he doesn't really steal bags. Like, he's a work in progress. Like, Jonah Cox has 47 steals. Like, that's absurd. So, I mean, he might have 70 at the end of the year. He might have 80 at the pace he's on.
Throw him on the 40 man and make him our new Darren Ford.
There you go.
I think he's like an ideal fourth outfielder, honestly.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of outfielders. I mean, that's part of where I'm like hesitant to go get some big name that's not like, unless it's like a genuine superstar. Like, if you go get a Luis Robert Jr., then cool. Like, I'm down. But I'm hesitant to go get an outfielder right now because they have a lot. And I feel like, I feel confident in Ramos. Lee's going to obviously be around. I do feel good about him, but like, Lee's going to be around. But I like Matos, but I mean, you've got so many guys that have just a ton of talent out there.
How's
I feel like you're gonna hit?
How's Bishop and McRae doing?
Bishop's in a little bit of a
time.
rut, but let's see what Bishop
McRae had 2 doubles tonight.
Nice.
Yeah. 266, 776, 776 OPS. Also threw out a guy today.
There you go.
I mean, that's the thing with McRae. Like, he has 3 elite tools, and then he has a very high end tool with his power. Like, he has plus power. It's just the hit tool that's a little questionable. I should say a lot questionable.
You send me the link.
The link to coming on. I'll tell you what, you get Dan and Eric to give me their recommendation, because they told me not to.
Damn.
Not me.
Not Caveman.
Not Caveman Dan.
NorCal. Is that Chardol? Oh man, I kept looking for a name to try and find it. They always said that name always came up in there. I didn't know he was the guy.
Yeah.
Oh, brutal. That's hilarious. Right. I mean, I think that's probably good for today. We ran this pretty long. Unless we have any other last second questions pop in, I'm just kind of doing another browse. Did you say, what did Walker Martin do today down there? I hadn't looked at the ACL.
I believe he went 0 for, let's see, I have it right here. Yeah, 0 for 5 with 3 Ks. Reckley did have a nice bounce back game, though. He went 1 for 3, 2 runs scored, 2 walks, no Ks. He had a double. Yeah, so nice bounce back game for him for sure.
Okay,
Nice.
that's good. Yeah, I mean, with Martin, I'm starting to get a little closer to that point where it's like, dude, you got to start putting the bat on the ball. Just at least a little more consistently, because that was definitely not something like that sounded like a concern when he was getting drafted. Like, I remember the big thing with him is like, I remember the big thing for him is like, they were talking about how good his hit tool was, like his bat to ball skills. And it's just like, he's striking out a lot right now. And, at some point, let's get him over to San Jose. And I don't know if maybe once he gets to, as he just gets more experience, hopefully that'll improve a little bit. Because, I mean, right now, he's 131 plate appearances and he has 56 strikeouts.
See, and one of the other concerns with when he got drafted is, he came from a Colorado high school, and they're not known for having high-level high school baseball out there. So that was the other thing. It's a little bit more of an unknown, kind of like the Niners taking like a Trey Lance coming from a smaller school and then going straight to the NFL as a high first rounder, you know? It's like you just don't really know what you're walking into, especially that high in the draft. And that's kind of where I'm saying, you know, it might be time to draft a high level college power bat, you know, in the first round, because a guy like Walker Martin, you know, it might take him 4 or 5 years to get through the system, and he's already 20 years old. And you're thinking 24, 25, where he's barely scratching the surface. That's kind of where we're at with Schmidt. It's like at that point, you might as well draft a guy that's shown it at a high level college, you know?
Yeah.
So, but we'll see. It's very early, like you said. I mean, he didn't come out and play last year after the draft. And ACL is in a very long season, so we'll see. I'd love to see him at the end of the year in San Jose and just let him play through the struggles and see if he can get some better coaching at that level.
For sure.
I think there's a good chance we'll see him in San Jose for a month.
Yeah.
A month-ish, because, I mean, ACL ends at, August? Like, beginning of August? So,
yeah.
He'll probably get, like, 20 games down there, and then probably start next season in A-ball, and hopefully, you know, he stays healthy through spring and everything, and he can get a full season and everything and start kind of working his way up. But, yeah, I mean, it's certainly a concern. Reckley is kind of showing, you know, he's taken a bit of a step in the ACL after being pretty poor in the DCL the last couple of years. So maybe, you know, some of these guys, it just takes time. And hopefully Martin's one of those guys, because, I mean, I love his swing. I've said his swing looks a lot like Corey Seager, but, I mean, you still got to go and do it. And I'm looking forward more than anything to just be able to watch his at-bats and everything, because, like, I'm just going off numbers right now. I haven't been able to really see anything. Same with Arias. Like, I just want to be able to watch those guys play. So yeah.
And I mean, hopefully we can see all three of those guys at San Jose, because, you know, like we're saying, San Jose doesn't really have much going right now with all those guys that got promoted to Eugene. You know, Foster's up in Eugene now. Eldridge is up in Eugene. There's really Diaz and nobody else, and Diaz is a young kid still. So, you know, throw all those guys together and see how it plays out. Ahuna is down there still, and he could get bumped up to Eugene with being a college kid, you know. So
they're gonna move.
We'll see how that plays out
for sure.
So
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at their Wade Meckler's playing there right now. Ahuna didn't even play. I know Sis County, he's having a nice year. That's a guy. Guillermo Williamson, he's got some nice pop, but he's not really doing much this season in San Jose. I mean, you're dead on right now. I mean, there's just not a lot. Alex Cobb threw 2 innings.
Yeah.
45 pitches.
Saw that.
What do you have, like 5 strikeouts, I think?
Yeah.
5
Ks. 1 walk. No hits. Good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. I didn't see really any other questions come in other than somebody wanting to jump on the show. Sorry, Shardall. So we're gonna wrap it up. We'll try and get another one going next week. I don't have any idea yet if it'll be Thursday or Friday. The 3 of us will figure out what kind of works for everybody and try and get something going. And I know Ricky and I we're talking about the minor league stuff. I don't know yet if I'm going to be able to do that weekly or not. We'll kind of figure. We're going to play that one by ear. Might have to try and work my wife down on that one, but we'll see. That's one of those. I usually record them on Tuesday mornings. Like, I have all my stuff set up so that way I can just record, edit, post. Because she's gone, and then I have like an hour and a half before I got to go to work where she's already gone. So we'll see. But take it easy, everyone. We'll catch you all probably. I mean, definitely I'll have the minor league video for everyone next week, and then we'll try and put out some other stuff here and there. So
yes, sir.
Peace.